is Cruz. My pronouns are she, her, hers. As a member of the Music and Worship Committee, I welcome you here today, whether in the sanctuary or watching the recorded service later. The service is being recorded, which will end with the postlude, and then we here in the sanctuary will follow with candles and announcements, and our coffee hour outside in front of Brewster Chapel. Now, we want to welcome you, whether you're watching later or whether you're here, whoever you are, whatever you believe, whomever you love, wherever you're from. We welcome you today to walk with us. Let us walk together this hour. And now our service begins with the first reading entitled Risk and Resilience. Is our call to worship entitled Trust by Helen Russo. In fear I contract, fold in upon myself, creating barriers I presume will make me safe. Keeping at bay what scares me, I forget that an embrace of fear releases its bindings. Like a butterfly, I work to uncoil from the cocoon which protected my fragility. With trust, I expand, arise from the silence within, move forward to spread my wings, trusting I will be held aloft by life, where the winds of change challenge me in new directions.
As was our practice last week, during the hymns, we invite people to hum along, to remain seated, or to mouth the words, and only Sandi and Scott will be singing. Our first hymn is just as long as I have breath.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Through my pains I made my way, still with hope and meet each day. If I ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to love. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they asked what I did best, tell them I said yes to love. And I'd like to invite everyone to stand for our
this morning. And please say the words with me printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. And please be seated. Do you want to?
They can sit so they
They
can
can
see.
sit and they can see, and then Deb is going to do our time for all ages.
So I'm Deb Keller Wood, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm the Director of Spiritual Enrichment. And I'm doing the Time for All Ages. The thing about Time for All Ages is it's for all ages. It's not when we say something to the children and the adults listen and are patient. It's when we all get to learn. This Time for All Ages, the children probably know more than the grown-ups do about. We're going to talk about how to greet each other in COVID. I know that sounds a little strange, we've all been doing it for 2 years, but I have my sanitizer here, not because I don't want to get close to you, but because I want to be with you. And this may help you and me stay safe. But how do we greet each other? Art's going to help me. You ready for this? Let's see how well he does at this. All right, fist bump. Hip check. Ready? Foot bump. Here we go. Happy dance. Happy dance. Oh, opposite. Okay. Now you got to do the happy dance. Got any other good ones? I know a couple more. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Now you have to honor.
Namaste.
Namaste. Anybody got any other good ones? Oh, elbow bump. Yep.
Fist bump, elbow bump, you can make a dance out of it.
Any other good ones?
Elbow bump, give her a check.
Live long and prosper. Sure, that's a great one.
That is.
We could go with the basics. Hi.
Hi. Live long and prosper.
Hi. Any others? Air five.
Okay.
You are going to practice that while I take the children with me on our journey of learning and discovery. Come on, kiddos.
Yep.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
entitled Of Roller Coasters and Tilt-A-Whirls by Melville Grace. September is county fair season in much of New England. In our UU congregations, September is also in-gathering time, water communion time, returning to church time after far-flung summers laden with small jars of water from our travels and foot-long zucchinis from our overflowing gardens. But this year, like last year, will likely look much different from the water communions of years gone by. We are getting used to this. We are getting tired of this. Among professionals who work with intentional planning for change, there is something called the roller coaster of change. It's a visual way to describe how humans respond to unexpected change in order to help us learn how to manage our natural responses, as well as manage the pace of change that is in our control. Imagine being at the top of the first big hill of the roller coaster that you just chugged up slowly but surely. Suddenly, your direction changes radically. This unexpected change plunges you into emotional responses: shock, grief, anger, anxiety, disorientation, longing for the past, guilt, loss, detachment. When we all suddenly closed our church doors in March 2020, you may have felt some of these, perhaps in succession, perhaps multiples of them at once. Then, just as we hit the bottom of that hill, we reach the perseverance point. This is that moment where we come to accept that we are in a new place and decide if we are going to hang in there. We make adjustments in our practices and in our expectations. And we start climbing up that next roller coaster hill. We are taking back our agency over things we can control, responding positively, seeking out good information, developing new habits, reattaching to our communities of hope. It's a tried and true, predictable model of how we handle change. And we have been through a roller coaster ride, haven't we? Or have we? In a recent gathering of religious educators, a colleague offered, "Forget the roller coaster, this is the tilt-a-whirl." If you're not a fair ride enthusiast, you may not know that in a tilt-a-whirl, you are locked into a small pod that spins back and forth and around, sometimes slow, sometimes fast. That pod is on a track that loops you around, careening alternately forward and away from other spinning pods. The track also goes up and down, like a mini roller coaster. In short, you are spinning up and down, side to side, and around in circles, all at the same time. Maybe that is a better analogy for this COVID-19 plus Delta pandemic time.
So, I've spoken before about a friend of mine, Helen, who lives in Maine, that I got to visit again this summer. Last year, she published this book of poetry, Poems for a World on Fire. I am using 5 poems from this book in the service this morning. We used one of them as a call to worship. We'll use one now. There are 2 embedded in the sermon, and I will use a 5th one as the benediction. So you'll get to hear Helen's words interspersed with us. Sandy and I did this for some of you who may have seen the Zoom service from August 22nd, I think it was. And it is our hymn, Meditation on Breathing, and Helen's poem, Meditation on Grieving.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
I take in deep breaths of hope and release deep breaths of despair as I grieve the loss of civility, the rampant disregard for truth.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
I take in deep breaths of faith and release deep breaths of doubt as I grieve the use of religion to lead many astray from truth.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
I take in deep breaths of love and release deep breaths of hate as I grieve the loss of leadership from those who use power to sow division.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Somewhere in this universe, faith, hope, and love still abide. I breathe in these qualities that they may come and dwell in me.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
How many here remember where you were when you first heard about or saw on the news that first plane flying into the World Trade Center 20 years ago? September 11th, 2001. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I had just started at my first church after finishing seminary. It was in Auburn, California, about a half hour northwest of Sacramento. Northeast putting it back this way. It was a halftime ministry. And I drove up there from where I was living in San Francisco twice a month to spend 3 or 4 days with them. A couple in the congregation had a disattached in-law apartment on their property, which they made available to ministers. I had met the congregation for the first time and done my first service 2 days before on September 9th. That Tuesday morning, I was still in Auburn. I was just getting up to start my day, and the woman who owned the house where I was staying came knocking on the door to tell me what had happened. When I went over to their house to watch the news with her and her husband, we looked on in horror as another plane crashed into the second tower. In that moment, we knew that it was not an accident, but a terrorist attack. I can remember the chilling shock, fear, and grief that went through my mind and my body. Now, who can remember when you first heard about COVID-19 or knew the risk it posed? For me, those memories, even though much more recent, are far more diffuse, much less definitive. I remember something about a virus in China, but it certainly wasn't going to come here, we were told. And then it began to spread. And most of the stories downplayed its severity. And at the time, I was much more caught up in the political turmoil and lies of Trump's presidency to give the virus much attention. The next thing I knew, we were locking down, wearing masks, unable to have services or anything for that matter in person. We were scrambling to figure out how to do some kind of a broadcast thing to make the services available. It all happened so quickly. And we were visited daily with the shock and horror of 9/11 body counts. People died in droves and continued to die alone. And families don't have the usual avenue of grief. "9/11 seemed to bring people together, while COVID-19 seems to have accentuated the divisions that exist in our society. Not only the ideological divisions, but also the racial and class divisions, defining those who survive and those who perish from the pandemic. And there has been little coordinated effort to deal with this outrageous invasion of a virus into our lives. In no battle plan," Helen writes, "we know we are at war with no unified battle plan. The death count rises. 50 states with 50 different ideas about how this should be handled. Its citizens at the mercy of politicians who present no reasonable plan at all. How long will the people wait until their lives become more important than the ideologies of their leaders? How long must they suffer the loss of loved ones who die alone and in immense pain? The beloved community is shattered. Or was it ever there at all? Now, that last line shook me because I know I refer to the beloved community in a sermon at least once a month. I do believe that we can only be saved by the ways we come together to support and care for each other. But I have to ask myself if Helen is right. Is the beloved community a noble concept that can never be realized? Am I just playing at being Don Quixote, believing in fantasies that have nothing to do with real life? Today, the situation we find ourselves in seems more confusing than it has ever been. Last year at this time, everything was horrible, but seemed much more clear. We weren't faced with constant decisions where we assessed risk and consequences. Today I'm saying, well, should I wear my mask to the grocery store when very few people are doing so? Do I go to lunch with this person knowing we will be eating inside a restaurant and unmasked? Do I visit friends and family who I haven't seen in a long time, even though some have health compromises? Do we open the doors to First Parish in Plymouth to meet here in the meeting house, even though there may be some risk? And there are some among us who don't feel safe joining us in person. Rev. Melville's Grace is one of our Unitarian Universalist Northeast regional staff people. That article, an excerpt from the article that Karen read as our reading this morning, makes some what I thought were really good points. This does feel more like a tilt-a-whirl than a roller coaster. We're not just going up and down with our emotional states, we're being flung all over the place. The ground beneath my feet doesn't feel very solid at all. Yet here many of us are trying to make some sense and some order out of our lives as we do our best to navigate these treacherous waters. Feeling relatively safe that most, if not all of us, are vaccinated, yet knowing that we still can catch and spread the virus. What a mess we're in. Yet here we are. This is our lives right now. We put on our best smile under our masks because we know we can't do any of this alone. Because we believe in this community of faith and hope and connection. We believe that this here matters, that it's important, and that we offer ourselves and each other some ways to find meaning in the chaos. 2 weeks ago, in the Boston Sunday Globe, there was a front page article by Mitchell Zukoff, who was a Globe reporter at the time of 9/11 and wrote a book about that day and its aftermath. He is now a journalism professor at Boston University. In his article, he reminds us that the country seemed to come together after 9/11 and that there was a strong tolerance for dissenting views and disparate religious beliefs. There was even an improvement in our views of Muslim Americans. Unfortunately, that didn't last long. As we slip further and further into intolerance and partisan divide. And the 2019 poll found that 71% of Republicans don't believe Islam is compatible with American values. In his article, Zukov also wrote about Jack Grancolas, a California man who lost his wife and unborn child on 9/11. Lauren Katusi Grancolas had flown to New Jersey for her grandmother's funeral. She was supposed to fly back to California later that day, but had been able to catch an earlier flight, United Airlines Flight 93. Lauren was likely one of the people on that flight who formed themselves into a strike team to thwart the hijackers on that plane. Their efforts, as you know, brought the plane down in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, missing its intended target of the White House or the Pentagon or the Capitol building in Washington. Everyone on board was killed. But so many other lives were probably spared. Zukov writes, Lauren's death and the loss of their unborn child sent Jack spiraling. In 3 months, he lost more than 30 pounds. In a recent conversation, Jack says he feels like he's completed a 20-year PhD on grief. But throughout that time, he refused to be consumed by hate. Early on in his anger, he realized that the ideology of hate is what caused the perpetrators to do what they did. In our society, Jack says, love must conquer hate. So I won't go down that path. I can disagree, I can dislike, but hate is a learned and very dangerous ideology. Jack makes another important point, reminding us that the individuals on that flight did not know each other. They chose not to fight with each other, but to bond together. The people on that plane were old and young, gay and straight, male and female from all races, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, husbands, and wives. And like his wife Lauren, mothers-to-be. I believe, Jack says, not to borrow someone else's phrase, that's the only real way to make this nation great again. It's about how we come together as strangers in a moment of dire need. And right now, I think we're in a moment of dire need. He's right, you know. We are in a moment of dire need. We know the fear and the lies that are being told only leave us in a state of more uncertainty and confusion. We know that coming together is our only hope. Yet coming together is one of the most difficult things we can do, given the depth of the chasm that divides us and the intransigence of either side to understand the other. In the poem, Fear Will Not Lead Us, Helen writes, Fear will not lead us out of the swamp, over the mountain, or through the fire. Lies will not give us the map to our future or make us more loving of one another. Only truth-telling informs us of paths to be taken, challenges to overcome, and possibilities to embrace. Only love can unite us as brothers and sisters in the goal of our planet's salvation. We're all in different places on that tilt-a-whirl that keeps us jumping and spinning and locked in our own little pods. We still have no idea what a new normal will look like, or even if there will be one. We only know that we can never get through this without each other and our values of faith, hope, and love. In Wren's article, she uses the phrase faithful risking to describe the nimble and innovative approaches we must take today. Faithful to our spiritual calling and values, we take important and necessary risks for our own emotional health and that of those we care about. And we pray that we will be safe and that things will become more clear. Faithful risking, she writes, means choosing to take action even though the outcome is uncertain and things may not go as we intend or plan. We root ourselves in the values of inclusion and consent, following science, going slow, staying flexible, in being humane and realistic in expectations of ourselves, our church staff, and each other. So we continue to gather with like-minded people for support and strength for the journey. We continue to speak our truth and listen as best we can to the truth of others. We continue to listen to the earth and take seriously what is happening to our planet. We continue to search for any common ground where we can work together, and we remember that a fierce and powerful love is the only thing that will see us through. And I'm not talking about a namby-pamby kind of romantic love that silences our truth so that we can get along. I'm talking about the kind of love that speaks truth to power and demands justice. The kind of love that holds a place for all, especially those who are marginalized, hurting, and troubled. The kind of love that reaches out beyond barriers and calls each one of us to become our best selves. This may be the best hope for our future in these difficult and uncertain times. Amen. And blessed be. I believe the words to the closing hymn. It's a new one. I think we introduced it last year during some of the COVID services. And Sandi will sing. I invite everybody to read along, mouth the words. It's a beautiful hymn by Joyce Poley, a Canadian Unitarian Universalist singer and songwriter.
In the quiet peace of the dawn, as the waking birds begin their song, with the sunshine In the welcome warmth of a smile and the wondrous laughter of a child, in a friend who stands by my side, or a homeless stranger passing by, in the eyes of everyone I see, all of life is calling me to be more whole, to hear God's music in my very soul. And while I live the mystery, all of life is calling me. When a picture moves me to tears, when a song helps lighten all my fears, when I'm wrapped in stories and praise, in another time, another place, when a work of art has set me free, all of life is calling me to be more whole, to hear God's music in my very soul. And while I live the mystery, all of life is calling, all of life is calling, all of life is calling
The Phoenix by Hillary. Don't be afraid of the ashes, said the Phoenix. It may feel like everything is dying, slowly turning to what you fear may be the end of the journey. My new wings are here to tell you, rise. It is just the beginning. Black turning to green, no death here, never death. Only change and transformation.